Good afternoon, everyone, and I know that it is very sultry, hot, but as an academician, I feel this is very interesting conversation that it is going to be, especially for parents and academicians and others who are interested in the learning process that is involved. And today we have with us an erudite, a scholar, a teacher, an academician who has a different commitment towards society when it comes to children's learning. Kamala, good afternoon, Kamala. So as a teacher, I found this book was interesting because it sabotaged a lot of pedagogical theories that are usually ingrained in us as teachers. For me, I think it was an eye-opener in many areas. And teachers, as you know, we are very difficult people to transform. You know, there are so many things, preconceived notions that we take to the classrooms. And I think this book has a scientific voice that confirms many things, many new ideas that we should incorporate in teaching. So this book is titled, What Did You Ask at School? And it throws light on hidden workings of a student's mind. Shall we start by talking about how you decided to write this book?
Thanks, Latha. Nice introduction. I wrote this book because I was bringing together two great loves of my life. One is the study of psychology, which I did for many years. I studied developmental child psychology, educational psychology, and then I came back to India and I became a school teacher, which is the second big love of my life. I love teaching children. And I noticed as a teacher, when I would speak to other teachers or parents, they had a lot of questions or maybe a lot of ideas, like you said, Latha. They had, why is she not paying attention? Why can't he understand? Why aren't they able to listen to me, though I've told them 100 times, things like this. And I knew that psychology as a field of, as a scientific field of research is asking the same questions, but in a very different way. And I also knew that there really isn't a nice bridge between the two. Researchers write, they write for each other. At the most, they'll write a textbook. But that really doesn't address the questions the way a parent or a teacher would ask them, right? So I thought, let me try and do this. And I wrote the first book, What Did You Ask at School Today? Many people think that it's only for children, right? You ask children, what did you learn today? And people think I was saying, what did you ask today? I actually meant it for teachers. What are the questions that teachers are asking in school? So I meant it for both. So I wrote it in as simple a way as I could without oversimplifying the research. And that got translated by DC Books into Malayalam. And then I wrote a follow-up book with the same title, Volume 2, which talks about certain educational myths. So in the last few years, I'm noticing that there's a lot more information out there, right? Information, but not much understanding. So on topics like learning styles or digital education or left brain, right brain, so many myths, educational myths that are flying around. And I thought, let me try and understand more about them and share it again with teachers and with parents.
Yeah. I think the second book has also been published, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I, as a teacher, I feel there are a lot of, and also as a mother, I feel that this is an excellent handbook, and as it unravels the complexities of the learning process. And I should say the 6th chapter, especially in this book, provides a thought-provoking account of issues that we encounter in classroom teaching, namely those gender stereotypes that may result in underutilization of the student potential. I think it is very relevant, especially for us, now that we are trying to encourage girl children to pursue STEM, science, technology, engineering, and maths subjects. So could you share some more insights with us, especially for parents and teachers who are involved?
Yeah, and I should add students of education, if there are any here.
Yes.
For all three. Yeah, one of the things that surprised me when I was researching for the book was this notion of intelligence. That I grew up in India having this picture that intelligence is this fixed ability that you're kind of born with, and you come to school with it, and then all that education does is to figure out what your intelligence is and then classify you, right? I learned through my study of psychology that isn't a correct picture at all. And so as a teacher, I would define intelligence as something that you get at the end of your education. That is the aim of education, not the starting point at all. So that's one interesting thing. Another thing was that, look, we all know that punishment is bad, right? Most of us now know that punishment is not good for learning and teaching. But what I discovered was that reward isn't great either, right? So I read and wrote a good bit about that, and it changed me also. The way I would try to use praise as a way to build a child's self-esteem. It turns out that that's a misguided path, which I tried to convey in the book. So that was one. Then, like you said, Latha, I actually grew up believing that boys are better at math and science, right? I think many of us did. And I loved science and math. I took it in +2. I even did BSc Physics. But all through, I had the feeling like I don't belong. Of course, I was only one of 4 in the class, right? There were 60 boys and 4 girls. That would have been one reason why I felt like that. But the other reason is this kind of feeling fake that one day they are going to find out that I don't actually know. And I was doing well. So I felt even more like an imposter. And it's only after reading and researching that I have now understood that it is boys and girls, there is no difference in the ability to learn math and science. There is no documented scientific evidence for a difference. A lot of the difference does come from socialization and bias, but a lot comes from us, you know, from girls and women who doubt themselves. So even as a teacher, I notice because I teach math, and I see girls choosing math, doing better than the boys even. They do really well. And then they drop out at various points. Even though they choose a science or a math stream, they tend to drop out. And that's called the leaky pipeline, right? They keep falling out. And I feel a lot of it has to do with their own self-doubt. And so I would like to make young girls aware of this, that they may be absorbing these stereotypes without realizing. And also, yeah, the fact is there aren't enough female role models out there. And when we try to put a woman scientist as a role model, we will internalize that as, oh, she's different. We simply haven't got to the point where it's normal, right? But the other part of this is, why aren't we concerned that boys aren't getting into humanities? Why aren't we worried that they are not becoming poets? And I think it has to do with the fact that power and status are identified with science and math, right? And women are being shut out of that. So there's a lot of other kinds of redressal that needs to happen, actually. But yeah.
Yeah, I also remember that after, when I took literature, most of my friends and relatives commented, oh, why did she take literature? What is the use? But I should tell you that this is a language that gave me wings to go all around the world, and that language has given me so much of power. So there is, I found this book very interesting in the sense that it has scientifically elaborated the concepts of learning. And I should also comment about the illustrator. You know, she has done, Radhika.
Yes.
I think she has done a brilliant job. There is an earthy sense of humor, at the sense that usually when you look at the size and when you look at the illustrations, you feel put off. But I should tell you that this sketches, the way in which she has brought out your concepts are very appealing.
Yeah, can I say a bit about Radhika? Because she and I taught together at the school where I work for many years, and we're very good friends. We worked together on that. Yeah, she's just brilliant.
So, and then one thing is, see, you talk about adolescent education and their emotions. In this digitized world, we find that the Gen Zs are very difficult at times. That is what we feel. They become so complex because they have a lot of mobility, they have access to many things. So you have dealt with, you talk about decoding the adolescent mind. I found it very interesting. How, can you share some insights about how to decode the adolescent mind to facilitate them, facilitate their well-being and enable them to fulfill their full potential?
So actually, Latha, I would say what's been more useful for me is to decode my mind when I am working with an adolescent, actually. Because I find that all of us, my colleagues and I, there's a certain fear that comes in when the child grows a little older, right? And perhaps it's understandable because the kind of trouble that a teenager can get into is more serious. The stakes are higher than for little children. So that fear is coming at exactly the wrong time, and the actions that follow that fear. When we feel fear, we clamp down. We say no, and we draw the lines very, very sharply. And that's also the age when there's a slight distance between the adult and the child, and that only gets worse, that gets exacerbated. I think that we need to watch that fear in ourselves. Actually, what the adolescent needs is our trust, and they need a lot more autonomy and responsibility in life, and when you can give them that. When I say trust, I don't mean blind trust. It's a kind of a trust that says, I know that you're under a lot of different pressures. I know that you will be tempted to do maybe X, Y, Z and go in certain directions, but I'm here to give you a very long rope. I think that is what I would say. Give them a long rope, hold them, forgive the trespasses, and, but give them autonomy and trust. And that's the kind of respect that they need. Yeah.
So, but I think, Kamala, when I look back, as I was growing, my mother always I used to be so offended, and I used to ask her, why are you policing me all the time? And then the answer would be, as you said, it's not that I don't trust you, but it's your age.
Yes.
You know, so now, you know, a woman who has crossed 50s, I think it is still there.
Yes.
So that is why I posed this question, the trust.
Yes. Yes.
And one more thing that I was impressed by the statement that you made in the book, that computer or the digital touch cannot replace the teacher. I think during COVID times, we were a digital presence, the teachers were a digital presence, but it's not very often these days that we hear someone share this opinion, even though most of us think it. Can you share your thoughts on digital learning and the role of the teacher?
Sure. I mean, so teaching is my bread and butter, so I'm naturally very threatened by this idea of learning from the net in digital education. But can I just say a couple of things in favor of it, in the sense, there are two areas or reasons for which I would support digital education. One is the problem of access. Quality education is a very gated affair, right? It's a gated community. It is true that many people can't get into or can't access a good teacher, right? So in that sense, open courses and digital education makes everything little more equally available, so that's good. And another reason to promote good quality digital education is, sadly, there are many poor quality teachers. There are many teachers who don't care, who don't try to improve themselves, right? So you could say that that's another good reason to promote digital ed. But for me, I feel I would like to put my energy into helping teachers improve themselves. So to improve the quality of the live teacher experience, because nothing replaces the student-teacher relationship. For me, that's the core. That relationship is core. You can't really have a relationship with a digital teacher. So.
And one more thing that I came across was, usually as teachers, we look at the performance of students. Yes. Their grades are very important to us. The number of students who passed our course, and that is an indicator for learning. Instead, learning being a means to performance. You have also commented about it. How can we change this stereotypical concept as teachers?
So, when I said performance, of course I mean mostly exams and tests, right? They tend to be final. They tend to come at the end of a learning process, and there's very little learning that follows that can come out of that, right? Whereas you can think of every bit of homework or worksheet or everything as a small performance from which the teacher can get feedback about how her or his teaching has been and put that back into the class, right? So in that sense, performance as a means to learning rather than learning as a means to performance. That's how I meant that, yeah.
So as we conclude this session, I would open this conversation to the audience. If you have any questions related to the learning process of children, you can ask our panelists today. Any questions about children's learning?
Hello, hi. I've not read the book, but just from the name of the talk, like what should be done at school today of more regarding the psychology and all those things which would affect in parenting, or how does both school and parenting get in line?
Yeah, I feel that the teacher is at the center of that change, that transformation. And the job of people like us is to educate the teacher as to the nature of the child, how children develop, how children learn. Content knowledge is very important, of course, that is one thing. But this is something very fascinating. Like if you're a potter, you know about your medium, you know about clay, and you know how it works. If you're a teacher, it's so nice to know about learning, to know about how children are. And there's a lot of scientific research out there that actually contradicts what we think, you know? So it's very fascinating to read about it and to see that, oh my God, I thought all this. Like for example, people have assumed that the problem with teaching teaching a child is they don't know and I have to tell. Actually, the problem is they know too much. And I have to figure out what they know, and based on that, I have to teach. So it's a totally different, it turns your teaching process around. So I'm hoping that through books like this and, you know, presentations and talks, we can spark that off in a teacher's mind. Thanks for the question.
Ma'am, considering all these subjects, please share your opinion about the importance of mother tongue in education, especially in school education.
Yeah, definitely. I haven't written about this, so I haven't read much about it, but I am aware that at a young age, it is possible for the child's brain to absorb and learn more than even 2 languages, 2, 3, 4, right? It would be nice if our children grew up in that kind of a multicultural, multilingual way. And I know many young children who are growing up like that. I think the issue of mother tongue to me is very important for children who come from tribal societies or from small communities where they come into school at age 6, having heard and known only one language, and suddenly have to switch to the mainstream language, be it the state language or the national language, right? That concern for me is greater than to say that for cultural reasons we should hold on to one particular language or another. But that's just my opinion. So.
Hi, I'm Rashida. Could you shed some light on the role of parents too in this? Because at this age I realize I've messed up quite a bit. Son is here.
Well, he looks fine. I did write the book thinking that there are many parents nowadays who are genuinely curious about their children. They're not just, they're not just pampering them or indulging them. They're also very curious about them. They're wondering what's the best thing. And they fall prey to a lot of commercial forces out there that say you do this, then you'll get this. Or if you miss this, then you're in trouble. And I did want to speak to parents saying, first, relax. Most of the instincts that you have are fine. They're bang on target. You don't have to buy a lot of things or do a lot of things. And I wanted to explain why. And I wrote it for them to actually enjoy their child's growing up.
Hello, ma'am. Latha, ma'am, you mentioned about the performance and grades of the students, right? I have a question to Kamala, ma'am. We are very much concerned about the performance and grades of the students. Yes, of course, I agree to that. One thing that I have noticed is if the child is not studying or listening, the parents are always, teachers always blame the parents. 5 to 6 hours, I'm a parent come teacher. 5 to 6 hours, they spend, they value time with the teachers. So who are to be blamed here? Whether the parent or the teachers, if the child is not listening or, learning, whatever. Yeah. Even I am in a state of confusion. I'm not getting a proper answer for this question.
I understand. First, let's not blame anyone, because that's very hard when you blame a mother or you blame a teacher. I think it's actually everyone's responsibility to make a difference at the society level, because we have made these, what are they called? These narratives of success, right? That to get through school, this is how it has to be. To get out of school, and this is the kind of life you have to lead, the kind of higher education you have to have, the meaning of success and happiness. Unless we question all that, you and I, as parent and teacher, are going to be caught in the same, because we are pushing our children through this narrative. And I have found the only thing that has freed me as parent and teacher is to question what life is all about. It sounds like a very big question, but it's actually the question that will help us as teacher and parent. Is it really about this? Is it really about passing these exams and then getting into the best college and then getting the best job and then getting the best school for your child and then where does it end, right? A lot of good jokes about this actually have been made, but I feel the profound, fundamental, philosophical questions are the ones that will save us. And if I may mention, my school is based on the teachings of Jiddu Krishnamurti. If you are interested, please read. It's very, very clear. For 60, 70 years, he spoke about education. Very, very clear. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Is there any more questions? Are there any more questions?
Ma'am, you have said about that digital touch can't replace human touch in education. And when we are coming to this AI, artificial intelligence driven era, how would you interpret the situation that AI plus human integration in education concerning the psychology of children?
Last part of your question, could you repeat?
The psychology of the children. How could you interpret that AI-human integration in education?
Yeah. Actually, yeah, there's actually quite a bit of research for some time showing that children and adults also tend to ascribe human qualities to machines. I think we also do that. If something looks even a little bit like it has two limbs and it goes around on wheels, we immediately grant it some kind of consciousness, intelligence. Even the GPS, you know, your directions on the phone, we say why is she telling us to go left? Right? It very quickly we ascribe. So I actually am afraid that children will not realize the difference, that they are ascribing, empathic qualities or human qualities. I just hope that somewhere at some level we have the intelligence to know where to stop this mad rush towards artificial intelligence. I'm really hoping that finally sitting down, holding someone's hand, going for a walk, looking up at the stars, that this is going to be what will be meaningful in education, right? I'm just hoping that that's...
As we conclude this session, I'm happy to share that this book has been also published by DC in Malayalam, titled Ningalude Kuttigale Samartharakku. I think it is a must read for parents, teachers, and all those of us who are interested in education. And I think that, Kamala, as we end our conversation, I feel that we should not be like a GPS. Parents and teachers, we shouldn't transform ourselves into GPS, following, policing our children and ruining their beautiful world. And thank you all for your patient listening. Thank you, Kamala.
And thank you for the lovely questions.
Thank you so much for that wonderful discussion.